Hey everyone, Duke here, and today we're going to be making a complete walkthrough guide on the Salvation's Edge raid. I'm going to be doing this in kind of the style of my Riven guide from last month, where I go over my stream footage and kind of walk through it as if it's like pseudo live. I feel like this is going to be like the kind of the way to do it for this raid. It's going to make it a little bit easier. We can kind of jump back and forth to different spots and show you exactly what you need to do for every single encounter. So let's get right into it. For the first encounter, you're going to need to come to this main room to start the encounter, so we're going to jump back for a second. You'll have this box right here, and once everybody's in this room, you'll have a resonance to pick up on the ground. You just need somebody to pick up that resonance, dunk it in the box. You're going to want to remember that for later as well, as that's going to kind of be a main mechanic of this pretty much entire raid, but doing that's going to start the encounter. You're going to spawn a hand. It's going to have a triangle kind of jumping down. You want to avoid the hand, and you want to avoid this triangle as much as you can. Those are just going to be damaging you. There's nothing good about this mechanic in this encounter. It will be something useful for later encounters, but for this encounter, just avoid both the hand, don't be underneath it when it moves around and stuff, and do not be in this triangle buff at all during this encounter. You just want to avoid it. 2 rooms are going to be opening up when you start the encounter. You're going to want to send 3 people into one room and 3 into the other. When you come into this room, you're going to have a bunch of enemies to kill. You can go ahead and kill those and kind of keep progressing. There's going to be 1 room open from that first room into a second room, and you're going to have a Minotaur to kill. That's the main enemy into this second room. When you kill your Minotaur, it's going to spawn a Hydra for the opposite team. So when we kill that Minotaur, the other team got the Hydra. That Hydra that just spawned was spawned because the other team killed their Minotaur. Once you've killed the Hydras, you're going to have a third room open up. You're going to want to jump down into that third room, and either A, you're going to have another regular Minotaur, or B, you're going to have an Overload Minotaur. The team that has the Overload Minotaur needs to kill that Overload. That will open up the room towards the middle, and you're going to have a Tormentor spawn here in the middle that you need to kill. Once you've killed the first Tormentor, you're basically going to repeat the process. Make sure everybody gets back to middle when that Tormentor spawns. It can kind of cause things to be a little weird if not. So once the Tormentor spawns, get everybody to mid, kill it. 2 new rooms are going to open. Again, make sure you have your same 2 teams of 3 going into the 2 separate rooms. You don't technically have to be the same. It doesn't technically have to be groups of 3. It just makes it as smooth and easy as possible. But same exact thing here. Go into that first room, kill everything. Go into the second room, kill your Minotaur. It's going to spawn a Hydra for the other team. When they kill their Minotaur, it's going to spawn a Hydra for you. Again, you need to kill that Hydra so that the other team's third door will open up. So I like to make sure that when I see that Minotaur, we call out that we killed it, so the other team knows their Hydra is down, or that their Hydra has spawned. And I also like to call it when the Hydra dies, so that the other team knows that their next room has opened. Both callouts are super helpful and super important. So once you've found and killed that second Overload, gone to middle and killed that second Tormentor, you're going to want to head back to your rooms and look for 2 specific things. One of the things you're going to want to look for is this little pillar that should be open with a little glowing symbol inside of it. There's going to be these pillars in multiple and really all of the rooms. You want to look specifically for the one that's open and has this little glowing symbol inside of it. That's how you know this is going to be the one that is the ending room, and there's going to be a plate, which should be kind of over in this left side here that we can't quite see behind this wall, that is going to correlate to this pillar. That's going to be our ending plate and our ending room. The second thing we want to look for is going to be the starting plate. So this plate right here on the ground as we kill a few of these enemies. Definitely want to focus on taking enemies down. You don't want to be getting shot or pulled by some of these enemies across the plates when the mechanic is actually happening, so definitely take your time and kill some of the enemies first. But the plate that looks like this, that's going to actually be glowing on the ground, that's how you know that that is going to be the starting plate. By stepping on this plate, you're going to basically pass the charge across like the line that's going through here on the ground, and we've kind of seen in a few sections, towards where the ending plate is. So here in a second, we will kill these last couple enemies. As you can see, we get pulled across the plate, which is exactly what we don't want to have happen, but it works out because we were going to start it in a second anyway. So when you go across the plate or you touch the plate, that's going to, again, pass the charge. You want to call that out to your teammates so that they know that the charge is coming. So they're going to then get on the plate right when the charge comes. And very importantly here, we're going to watch this. See how the charge comes through? The charge like comes through the line, so we're skipping through that again. Again, try not to get pulled across the plate. It just makes things a little more sus. But when the charge comes through here, right now, then the plate starts charging, and that is when you want to get on the plate. You don't want to go too early because that's going to break it, and you don't want to wait too late for the charge to basically make the plate completely glow because that will also break it. If you do that, again, we do it here, the charge comes in, we step on the plate. If you do it too early or too late, that's going to spawn a subjugator and basically require you to kill that subjugator in order to continue this process again. So we're going to break this next part into 2 steps. You want to pass this buff back and forth until you get this message in the left corner, all resonance have been called forth. Do note that you're going to get this message twice actually. There's one for the one room and one for the other room. There's not really, as far as I'm aware, any direct way to tell which room this message is meant for. I believe it's just 2 passes back and forth total in order to get this message. You can just pass it back and forth a couple like extra times, do 3 back and forth. Just make sure you see this message. If you see it twice, you know both rooms are good for sure. And there's really no bad thing to doing it extra other than your time up top. You do need to finish this before the time, goes down to 0. But again, I believe it's 2 back and forth passes. Technically, you don't even have to do all resonance. Like, this just means that all the resonance that is possible has been spawned, which we'll explain here in a second. But you want to get this message if possible. It's not required. And again, we'll break this down here in a second. So what we want to do, kind of while we're passing back and forth, is picking up the resonance. So the resonance are these little symbols on the ground that are going to be all over both rooms. There'll also be some that spawn in middle, and between you, the person on the main starting plate, the person on the second plate that's passing it back to you, and just the third person on your team that's kind of there helping kill ads on both sides and protecting the plate people. You want to try to grab 3 of these if possible, because the more resonance that you have, the more time that we're going to add back onto the timer for the next round. That being said, you cannot hold more than 3. If you try to pick up 4, it's going to kill you. So you don't want to pick up more than 3. But again, you want to try to just pick up the ones that are close. The hard part, again, here is you kind of got to do this in between the passing, right? So like I just passed the charge to my other teammate, and the charge eventually here is going to come back to me, right? So I need to pick these up in between. I pick up these 2 that are close to me. The charge I know is coming back because they called out that the charge was going to be coming back, so I wait for it to come through again. The plate starts charging, and I pass it back to them again. So here, I don't believe I'm able to get 3. Even if you only get 1 or 2, that's still more. That's not bad. It's not a bad thing. What I probably should do here is actually come to middle a little sooner. If I came to middle a little sooner, and actually I do still end up getting an extra charge here. Now, one thing to talk about here is each set of plates that you're charging is spawning specific resonance, right? So the third resonance that I pick up from middle is actually technically from the other team's plates, because the ones that we spawned from our 2 plates actually despawn the second you lock in the charge, which we'll show how that works here in a second. But just something to keep in mind. Again, just try to get a couple resonance. That's the short version. If you can get more, awesome. Just try to get a couple for each person. The person that's charging the plate must have at least 1 though, which again we'll break down here in the next clip. So as was just mentioned, as you're passing back and forth the charge on the plate, you want to be making sure to pick up this resonance. If you're the person that's going to lock in the resonance into the pillar, this is what you're going to need to do. So as you saw, we just shot the pillar right in like the little glowy spot. It's going to give you a single damage marker and basically let the pillar know that it needs to be ready to get charged. It's like opening the pillar, or like setting up the pillar for like putting that charge into the pillar. Again, you need to have at least 1 resonance to do this. You shoot the pillar, and that's going to like activate it. Now the next time, if you do that, the next time you stand on this plate, again, making sure to wait for the charge, it's going to like lock in the charge. Instead of passing back the buff across back to the other plate, it's basically going to pass the buff or pass the charge into the pillar itself. And here we'll see it kind of glow. It goes away kind of quick. Maybe we'll get a better look at it. No, I just kind of turn. But you'll see it if we take one more look at it. As soon as I get on this plate, the charge comes through. I get on the plate after shooting the pillar, and here in a second we'll get one kind of frame. Boom, it glows like that, and it kind of closes up and glows. And you'll also get the message that the resonant conductor sparks to life. That's how you know you did it correctly. Again, you need both sides to do that, and that is going to start the next part of the phase. Again, the more resonance you have, the better, which we'll explain why in a second. You need to have at least 1, because when you do that, it will take 1 resonance away from the person that basically closed off the pillar and charged that pillar. So if they don't have 1, there's nothing to charge it with. You won't be able to do this. You need to have at least 1. If you had 3, which again was the max, that means you'll still have 2 extra for this next phase. So once you do go ahead and charge the pillar, you're going to want to make your way back to the center. Again, both teams need to do it. If there are any charges left here, I would go ahead and grab them as well, just to have a little bit extra resonance. I missed that by like a half second, unfortunately. But once both teams are done, everybody's going to want to make it to the center, for sure. There's going to be a subjugator to kill, along with a few other ads. And once everything is dead here, you're going to get the box that we mentioned at the very start of the encounter to spawn, and you're going to dunk your extra resonance in there. So once the box is here, you want everybody to dunk their resonance. Again, the thing that's a little weird about this box and dunking the resonance, and this will be true of every encounter, is like one person can only do it at a time, because it just doesn't, like the way it's coded just doesn't let people dunk. So like if you're walking up to it and try to dunk and then it like stops you from dunking, make sure you like actually lose your resonance on the left side of your screen, right? So like I have the resonance here, the box is going to spawn here in a second, and then make sure that when you try to dunk here, and once you actually get the prompt in order to dunk, that your resonance goes away, because sometimes it will stop and then you'll have to try to redo it. But once everybody has dunked, then you're going to get time back. So right now you have 36 seconds. Here in a second, boom, it goes up to 4+ minutes based on how much resonance you dunked. So again, that's why you want to have as much resonance as you can to get this timer back as high as possible. If you only dunk like 1 or 2 resonance, you're only going to get like 20 or 30 seconds back on the timer, and that's not going to be enough to do multiple rounds of this. You are going to have to do 3 rounds of this entire, what we just explained, all the way through in order to beat the encounter. The second round and the third round are exactly the same. So as we see here, again, another room opens, one team goes into that room, the other team goes into the other room, and again, same exact process that we've gone from the beginning. Nothing changes in the second round, nothing changes in the third round. You just have to make sure that you have enough time each time, because again, the time of how long you have to do each round is based on how much resonance you dunked in the previous round, along with how much time you technically had. So again, like, let's just go back here a little bit. Let's say, like here, if we had like 1 second left on the timer when this round ended, for example, and we had less resonance dunked in the box, we'd only have the 1 second base plus however much resonance we dunked. If we had like a minute and a half left and then dunked resonance, we'd have, a higher base timer already, so we wouldn't need as much resonance in order to get the timer. But again, you just want as much resonance as you can get. There is also a cap to the timer. This actually might be the cap. 415 might be the cap for this one. I think it's 415 or 430. I don't remember for sure. But there is a cap for all of these encounters on how much time you can actually get. So there's like, a certain amount of resonance that it just doesn't help you anymore. But it's never bad to have more. Less is good. Less is bad. More is totally fine. Now let's talk about this second encounter, the Herald of Finality. This is the first of 2 boss fights in the raid, and to start you're going to want to have 3 teams of 2. You're going to have 1 team here in the middle where we are, 1 team over on the right, and 1 team on the left of the map. All you're going to have to do to start is basically kill some ads. I would recommend sticking together for this section. I think it makes it a lot easier. I mean, on contest, it was like pretty much required. Off contest is maybe a little bit easier, to be able to kind of kill your sides on your own. But I like to stick with my teammate, kill everything on one side of the map, go to the other side, kill everything over here. You are going to need to kill all of the enemies that spawn in originally to get your like secret, not a secret boss, but like your special boss to spawn in, again, along with a set of more enemies on top of that. So the middle team, once you kill your first set of enemies and you get that second spawn in, is always going to have a phalanx. The right team is always going to have an ogre, and the left team is always going to have a wizard. Also along this time, you're going to get 3 people get the Call to Reckoning buff here on the top of the screen. And if we go back a little bit as well, you'll actually see it in the bottom left corner, right about here in a couple seconds. You're going to see the 3 people, the Herald summons 3 people to battle. So that's going to be, those 3 people are going to get this Call to Reckoning buff. So once you have this Call to Reckoning buff, the first thing I do still recommend is helping your teammate to finish off your main big enemy. Again, whether it be the ogre, the wizard, or the phalanx, go ahead and kill that. Second thing you're going to want to do is then head to middle. Now in this clip, we actually just like get it so fast that I don't even make it to middle because the other sides were just a little bit faster. But when you get to middle, there's also going to be blights that spawn on multiple sides. But first we're going to show a clip of middle and then kind of come back to this clip. So once your main enemy is dead and you're making your way to middle with the Call to Reckoning, you're going to want to basically shoot the boss in the head. Once you've shot him in the head a couple times, you're going to get a like blight, basically a very miniature blight to spawn on his head. So we'll go ahead and see this again here. And he does teleport around a lot, so just try to get some hits in. But you'll see this little like kind of blight animation spawn on his head. When you see that, that means that he has spawned blights around the room, 1 in middle, and then either 2-ish, I believe, I think either left, right, or middle. 2 of the 3 will also have blights. I think that's just random. I don't think there's any way to see it, but you want to make sure that the people that are staying back, that are not having this Call to Reckoning buff, are ready to shoot those blights. Again, we showed that kind of briefly in the last clip, but all they need to do is shoot the blight a couple times so it disappears. Again, there's one that's also going to spawn in middle right here. It can spawn in a couple different places in middle, but it should be pretty obvious to see. Also, the people in middle can just shoot those. Technically, anybody can shoot any of the blights. It's just easier for the people in middle to shoot the middle one, and then the people that are left behind to shoot the ones on their side. But you can help. If you see another blight or other blights, you can go ahead and help shoot those too. There also will be this little like circle buff coming down from the sky. You want to make sure to avoid that because that can hurt you and potentially kill you. So this is kind of something to avoid during this encounter. Again, it will be important later for later encounters, but for right now we're just mostly ignoring it other than avoiding it. Now, once you have shot all the blights, you need to go ahead and shoot him in the head again, and shoot him multiple times in the head until you get the next buff called Stolen Favor. Now, again, this clip is on contest, so things got very hairy very quickly. Again, you have multiple people to help shoot that, and you can basically, once you shoot it enough times and get enough damage, things are a little bit easier off contest as well, where it's going to break a little bit faster, but just keep shooting him in the head until you get this Stolen Favor buff. And once you have the Stolen Favor buff, you can go back to your side. Again, I'd recommend focusing on helping to clear the ads first, but you're going to get an actual symbol on this pillar now. So before, the pillar just kind of had like a nondescript symbol on it, like it just kind of had like a visual glow to it. Now it actually has a symbol. This is just going to be the circle symbol that's on this pillar. There's also a pyramid or triangle symbol in this encounter. So you're just looking basically for either the round circle symbol or the pyramid triangle symbol. I just go circle and triangle. I think that's the easiest callouts. But now we have the symbol. Now, if it was in reverse, right? So for this encounter, we tend to, again, just like last encounter, have a very similar plate structure. So first, again, kill all the enemies. And I like to, again, stick with my teammate. Again, on contest, this was especially important. Kill all the stuff on bottom, then go rotate to help kill all the stuff on top. And once everything is dead, you're going to have one person on the top plate, which is going to be true of all three sides. The like higher plate in terms of just like elevation is going to be your starting plate that is glowing, just like last encounter. And they can go ahead and step on it to send the charge to the other plate. Again, make sure both people are ready before doing this. But again, you can see this charge, once they've stepped on it, you see the charge kind of going through the wall over here and coming over to my plate. And once it gets to the plate, I will go ahead and step on it to pass it back to my teammate. And you're going to want to go ahead and do that multiple times to get charges to spawn, or to get the resonance to spawn, which you could actually see very briefly. It kind of spawned in right after I step on the plate here. So this one over here, I think I went too far. But basically, every time you pass, you're going to get more resonance to spawn, just like last encounter. Now, the difference between on this encounter is these resonance are actually different types. Again, there's the circle resonance, and there is the triangle resonance. There's the pyramidic and cylindrical. I don't remember what the circle one's called, but maybe we'll see it here in a second. Spherical resonance, and pyramid resonance. So again, we have the spherical or circle resonance on our pillar, which means we need to lock in spherical resonance. Now, again, just like last encounter, you want to try to get 3 resonance if you can. And the important thing here is whatever the last resonance you pick up is going to be the type of resonance that you have. You can pick up any 3. It'll stack up, if I get a spherical, that's ×1. If I get a pyramid, that's ×2. It'll switch to pyramid on that second one. But then if I pick up a spherical again, I'll have ×3 spherical resonance, even though I picked up only 2 spheres and 1 pyramid. So that's really important to know and really useful to know. So again, we'll pass it back and forth a couple times, keep getting the buff stacking up. And here, I have 1 spherical resonance, and I know that I'm going to need to end on spherical resonance. So instead of going and picking up that spherical resonance first, I go ahead and pick up this pyramid resonance right next to me, get the ×2 first, and then I go and run to grab this spherical resonance for ×3, so that I am going to end on spherical resonance. So here, now that I have ×3, I call it to my teammate, I'm good, I'm going to lock in on this next one. So again, just like last encounter, I can go ahead and shoot the pillar before the charge comes in, and then once the charge is on the plate, I step on, and it will activate the resonant conductor. It will spark it to life, and that side is done. Again, all 3 sides are doing this exact same thing simultaneously. Now do note when you're passing back and forth this charge, the symbols are always going to spawn in the same spots, but they may spawn in different orders. So again, that pyramid there was in the exact same spot that we showed in the last clip, but it spawned earlier. The spherical was in the same spot as the last clip. Again, the one that is in this corner, I think spawned earlier last time, but I always grab this. I like to grab this one early if I can. If it spawns early, I like to grab it early. Otherwise, I will grab it, whenever I have to. Just because it's further away, it's a little nicer to be able to grab it early and grab the 2 close later. But again, it's different spots for every single side, but you want to kind of just make sure you're paying attention to which ones are spawning where, so that you know which ones to grab. Again, technically you don't need to have 3, especially for the person that is charging the plate. Just make sure you grab the right one last. Again, here we shoot the pillar right here. We go ahead and wait for the charge to come on, and we lock in the plate. Now, once you've locked in your plate, you're going to want to kind of head towards the center. I usually try to I don't want to head straight to the box, just because, if everyone else is not ready yet, I'm just kind of sitting here. This is don't do what I'm doing here. This is our first run after contest, and I just want to see how much he would hurt. It's a big difference, as you can see. I can just sit in here and tank. But as soon as we get all 3 conductors sparked, this box is going to spawn. We can go ahead and dunk in our charge, First of all, that's going to reset our timer up higher, again, based on how much charge we dunk in, and then damage phase will start. So we just like to do damage right next to the box, so we can just dunk in the box, turn around, and just be doing damage. So, but you can technically do this damage from wherever you'd like. He does teleport around a decent amount, so just be careful for that, but, just do as much damage as you can, and then once the damage phase is over, you're going to head back to your side. Again, for this encounter, our max timer is 3 minutes. One thing I was doing on contest was actually holding my resonance until my first damage rotation, then turning around and dunking again, or dunking for the first time, or dunking the only time, because we'd usually cap at 3 minutes. I'd let 10 or 15 seconds run off the time and then dunk at that point, which would get us back to 3 minutes and buy us an extra 10 to 15 seconds. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that, especially off contest. I don't think it's really even necessary, but even with saying if it's necessary or useful, it is a very tight timer, because if you dunk too late, then, or if you don't dunk fast enough, the box does despawn. So again, wouldn't really necessarily recommend it. It's just something to keep in mind that it's possible. It's something to, for master or for specific challenges, or if you're struggling with time in general, it is a possible option to wait a little bit to dunk one of your team's resonances, just to get that, kind of take advantage of that 3-minute max timer, and then reset it a second time almost. But again, that's a very high level tip that you aren't going to need in your average gameplay. Now, one final clip here I just want to show is, again, the blight spawning kind of from the other perspective. Basically, if you are not the person heading to middle and they are shooting the head to spawn the blights, you just kind of want to be ready for the blights. And do note that as soon as they finish getting their buff that we showed earlier, again, shooting the head, blights break, and then they shoot the head again, that is going to spawn another set of enemies immediately on your side. So that's a good time, if you're the person killing ads here, to again just be on the lookout, kind of on one of the sides. Again, it's the same for all 3 sides. You just kind of play near the side rather near then right in the middle on top of the ads, and you're going to be in a good spot to be able to take the ads down immediately. Also, do note that in this clip, this is the symbol that you basically just have. It's just not really a shown symbol. It looks just kind of like a glowing star almost. That's not a very useful pause. This symbol right here, this is nothing, right? So I don't have the buff, so I can't see this symbol. So it's important, if I'm the person on the bottom plate, my teammate is going to be the one that had the stolen favor that can actually see what symbol this is, which in this case they told me it was the pyramid symbol. That's why I have the ×3 pyramidal resonance, so that I can lock in the correct symbol. If you lock in the wrong symbol, it is a wipe. So very important that if you're the one coming back with stolen favor, that you tell your teammate which buff they need to dunk. Also note that by spreading out like this, the encounter always gives you one person on every single side with the call to the middle buff. It's always going to be one person on left, one person on middle, one person on right. I don't know exactly how that's coded to work like that, but it works every single time. If there's 2 people on left, 2 people middle, and 2 people right, exactly one of them will all get called. So you always have a person on each side to have that buff. Also, do note that if you die with either buff, the call buff or the stolen favor buff, when you get rezzed, you will still have that stolen favor buff. If you die with the call buff, you actually lose that one. You can't go middle to help. And if all 3 people with that buff die before getting the stolen favor, that is a wipe. But again, if you get to the point of having stolen favor, you'll have it permanently, so you can still see this area. And also note that for whatever reason you're doing this in a different way, where you're not doing 3-2-2-2, then you can always have somebody with a stolen favor buff from a different side come over and make your call out if necessary. The final thing to talk about in this encounter is the final stand. When you hit the final stand, the timer is going to pause and basically reset, and you're going to have a 30-second new timer, no matter what timer yours was before, to kill him. This part, 30 seconds is a long time. You don't need a ton of damage. You don't need a ton of time to do that. At this point, we're pretty much just out and just running primaries. There will be a couple other ads that spawn, so just be careful of those. But even being really low on ammo going into this, we still had 10+ seconds to spare. Again, if you want to, you can save a little bit of ammo, save a little bit of supers if needed, but it's really not necessary. Take them down, and GG's. Next, we have the third encounter, which this encounter doesn't really add too much in terms of mechanics. It does add a third resonance type, but if you've done the first 2 encounters, you kind of have a pretty good grasp of this one. So again, to start it off, you're going to pick up the resonance. Again, there's a square resonance now, and you're going to dunk that in the box to start the encounter, and every side is going to get a tormentor. You're going to want to start with 2 people on the left, 2 people in the middle, and 2 people on the right. go ahead and take down this Tormentor between the group of 2 of you, and whoever actually gets the finishing and final blow on this Tormentor is going to get the Stolen Favor buff from last encounter, which again will allow us to see the symbols on these pillars. Well, there will be a pillar on every side. Again, this mechanic has been used in the first 2 encounters, so we kind of have a general idea on that. So again, we kill that Tormentor, we get the Stolen Favor buff. So at that point, there's going to, now very importantly, when you kill all 3 Tormentors, there's going to be turrets that spawn. There'll be some turrets on the left, turrets on the middle. They'll all kind of be on the higher up pillars here around the room. Definitely want to be ready. Definitely want to call out when the Tormentors are dead. Call out, left dead, middle dead, right dead, so everybody knows when these turrets are going to spawn. Go ahead and take these out first. Again, now I have the Stolen Favor buff from killing the Tormentor, and I can see the symbol on my pillar. You saw it for kind of a split second. I'll look at it here again here. So this is the square buff. What I like to do here is make sure that everybody calls out left to right. So like, let's say in this example, I don't know what left and right had at this moment because I don't have the comms, but let's just say left was circle and right was triangle. I would type CST in the chat just to keep track of that. So meaning C or circle left, S or square middle, and T or triangle right. So you can kind of have that written down for everybody in the chat to keep and remember. So here, at this point, you're just doing the same mechanic from both the first 2 encounters. You're just passing the charge from plate to plate. So you have the plate on left goes to left, the plate on middle goes to middle, the plate on right goes to right. That's important because that's not going to be true of the next 2 rooms. But again, once you're ready, just have your teammate step on their plate. The charge will come here. You step on the plate when it comes. The charge goes back. For this encounter, I do like to do just 2 there and backs. So like step on first plate, come to this one, step on this plate, go back. They step on that plate, it comes back here. And then at this point, once I send that back the second time, no more charges. You just let it dissipate. The reason for this is it just makes the next part a lot simpler and a lot easier, and you're going to have plenty of time to do this mechanic, and it's just a lot easier to not have to worry about multiple things at the same time. The one thing that does happen by doing this is you will have a extra subjugator spawn. Technically, you can probably avoid. Honestly, I've never even tried to avoid getting this extra subjugator to spawn. Again, when you get the energy to dissipate from the architecture from each one, that is what spawns the subjugator on each plate. But again, this guy's not that tanky. He's not that hard to kill. It's a little bit threatening if you're not ready for him. Just be ready for him. Take him down, and you're good to go. That will allow the plates to basically be usable again. The other thing you want to do during this time is, again, you've passed the charge back and forth a couple times. What we were doing is we made sure to always have these same people picking up the same types of buffs. So in every single room, the buffs that spawn tend to spawn very similarly on which section spawns which symbols. They're not exactly the same. This first room is probably the easiest in terms of how it breaks down, but the left side people are always going to pick up the square buffs. The middle people, the two teammates in the middle, are always going to pick up the circle buffs, and then the 2 teammates on right are always going to pick up the triangle buffs. This just makes sure that everybody knows which ones they're picking up, and it just allows things to go a lot smoother for this next part, because again, now I have 3 sphere buffs. Again, technically it only really matters at the last one I pick up, but if I'm stealing somebody else's and then now suddenly they don't have enough to pick up their last one to be the correct buff, that's going to be an issue, right? So again, we have the sphere buff, we have aka the circle buff. So again, I don't know which of these pillars is the circle buff because I haven't seen it yet in this clip, but it looks like we're going off to the right side. So as we go over here, we should be able to see the circle in the pillar because we have the Stolen Favor. Again, we called this out and it's in the chat. It's just behind my webcam, so I can't see that. But yeah, as we go over here, we can see the circle buff in this pillar. So in this example, it had to be triangle left, square mid, circle right. So again, the fact that we were always picking up sphere, we're always picking up circle being the middle team means that we have to, once we have the circle buff, we bring it to whichever pillar had the circle symbol in it. Again, same exact mechanic as last encounter, except now there's like a rotation to it versus kind of a order of pickup to it. That's kind of the only change is exactly how we're doing it. So we have the spherical buff, aka circle buff. We're at the circle pillar. We're ready. We killed all the subjugators that we needed to kill. And now, once we're set up, we're going to call out, hey, right side's ready. Or again, if you're left side's ready, middle's ready. Make sure both people are ready. The person that is on the right side can go ahead and step on the plate once they're good. When they step on the plate, they need to call out to you that the charge is coming. You can go ahead and shoot the pillar like I just did, and then wait for the charge to come in. Boom, you step on the plate. That's going to lock it in again, just like we've done for the first 3 encounters at this point now. The other important thing here is that just like after we kill the Tormentors, it's going to also spawn turrets after we lock in all 3 of these plates. So be ready for the turrets to spawn again in the kind of upper areas in the same spots. And once you've killed all those turrets, you can go ahead and come to middle to dunk your extra resonance. So that's why it's, again, important to try to pick up 3 if you're the plate person, or I'm sorry, if you're the charged plate person, and also you can pick up all the extra if you are the kind of starting plate person. I like to have the person that is actually going to lock in the charge pick up first, just in case for whatever reason you weren't able to get enough charge spawned, or if somebody picked up a couple of the wrong resonance for some reason. You just want to make sure for sure that the person that's locking in A has at least a resonance, and B has the correct resonance, because that's the only thing that truly 100% matters. Everything else is just going to give you more time for the next room. So again, right now we have a minute 54. We cooked that room. We had 2+ minutes, or almost 2 minutes extra time that we could have taken here. So it shows, there's not a super time crunch, at least for this first room. And again, every extra buff that we can dunk into that box is going to give us an extra bit of time here as well in just a second. Once it kind of like refreshes, boom, back to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, for this encounter, 3 minutes and 30 seconds is the max. So, I mean, especially for this first room, we wouldn't even really have needed that much extra resonance to get back to that 3:30 timer. Once you do dunk all your resonance, push to this back door, go ahead and kill everything here. There will be an unstoppable champion, and once you've killed everything, a few seconds later this door is going to open, and you're going to want to run to the next room. Very importantly, in both this room and then the next room, all this time that you're taking to get to the next room, your timer is going. So the faster you can get over here, the better. Now in the second room, everything's going to be pretty much the same. Though you will have to kind of, learn the new spawn areas of everything, and the room's gonna look a little bit different. You got to kind of figure out where everything is and all that, which will hopefully you kind of pick up some of that just watching this. But a lot of that's going to require doing it and seeing it. But again, you'll have your 3 tormentors. Go ahead and take those down. They'll be kind of, this time there'll be 2 on the left. They're kind of together. So I like to, even though I'm on middle team, I like to kind of play on left side here, and then I'll usually have my teammate on right, or my teammate in middle trying to help right side potentially, or I can just go over and help right side if needed as well. Again, once you've killed all 3 tormentors, go ahead and take down the turrets. And again, if you do kill the tormentor, you'll have the stolen favor, so you can go ahead and see all the symbols and make sure that it is written down in chat so that you can, or just remember it. You don't have to write it down in chat, but it just makes it a little easier. So this time I think I saw a triangle on the left. We have circle here in mid, and that means square is going to be on the right. Now, the important part to this room is there is a little bit of a trick on how the plates, or in the charge of the plates, moves. So like the first room, left was left, middle was middle, right is right. That makes sense. That's easy. For this room, the left starting plate, so where SweeperBot is over here, again, we're kind of looking the opposite direction, but this is on the left side coming into the room, actually sends its charge to the middle plate where I am. And the middle starting plate over kind of where my mouse is over here, that's going to come through, it's going to send its charge over to the left side plate. So you got to keep track of that, especially when you're kind of communicating it between your partners on which charge is coming where. Technically, it doesn't fully matter as long as you're paying attention to when the charge is coming in, but it's going to make it a lot easier if you already know which one is which. And then the right side, for this room, right side is still just right, so that side is nothing different. So again, as the charge comes in, get on the plate, it goes back. And again, it's going to go back to the left side starting plate because the 2 plates are still connected every single pass. So we're going to do the exact same thing as last room. We'll do it 2 times, back and forth, let it dissipate, and a subjugator is going to spawn. So we'll skip ahead a little bit here. We already did our two passes. Our subjugator spawns right in here. They'll be like, actually, again, on left side, this is kind of the middle one, and then the other one's going to spawn like right next to it as well. So that's no problem. We can kind of help kill both here from middle, which is nice. We got the first one dead, and then the second one is spawning right in front of me, and we can go ahead and kill that one as well. Now again, once we've killed both of the subjugators, this is where we're going to want to pick up our resonance again. Now I will say with this room, the resonance gets a little overlapping with the circles and squares, at least here on the middle and left sides. So just be careful on which ones you're picking up. Again, if you do pick up a square, it's not a problem. I still try to pick up all 3 of this shape that you're supposed to. Again, like we talked about in the first section. Again, square on left, circle middle, and triangle right. This makes it smoother and easier to do. But if you do pick up one this wrong, just make sure the last one you pick up, the third one, or whatever the last one is, just no more than 3, is the correct one. So again, I picked up all 3 of my circle buffs. I come back to whichever pillar was circle, which again was middle in this case, doesn't have to be. But again, remember that once you're here and you're ready, you need to call out that the person on the left starting plate is going to pass to you. Because again, left comes to middle. So once you're ready, say, someone on left pass to middle, please, something like that. Do a quick couple word call out so that they know to pass it to you. And again, once they pass it, you lock it in by shooting. You wait till the charge is actually on the plate. you step on the plate, and that will lock it in. Again, remember, once you lock it in, you are going to get turrets once all three sides have locked in, so be ready for those. They can definitely kind of sneak up on you. And then you are going to need to go to the middle right here to go ahead and dunk your charge again to get time for the third room. So once everybody's dunked, it gets a little weird sometimes. Again, like it's only one person at a time. Sometimes it doesn't even like show you the prompts. It's kind of moved to different spots. But again, if enough charge is charged or enough charge is dunked, you'll get back to 330. If you do get less than 330, that's not necessarily a guaranteed problem, but you really do want to try to get to that 330 timer that is capped as much as you can, especially for this third room, because as you'll see here, going into the third room is quite a run. So again, we're going to be, all this time as we're running to the third room, is ticking down our timer. What I like to do for this third room now, though, is as soon as we kind of get to the opening, rather than splitting up everybody left, middle, right immediately, we're just going to take a hard left and get everybody towards the ads as quick as we can. Again, there's going to be 3 tormentors that spawn, but they're all kind of like right next to each other, so we're just going to skip ahead for a second. Actually, I guess we won't, so you can kind of see this whole path. So you're just going to take a left here, you're just going to run straight down this path and try to get to these ad spawns as quick as you can. If anybody has supers here, if anybody's like running a tether, it's really good because all these ads spawn really close together. You can kind of tether all the ads and all the tormentors in there together. But again, just you want to work on these tormentors as quick as you can, take down all 3, take down all the other enemies that may be around. And again, nothing's changing here. Nothing's changing here in terms of the mechanics. Once you've killed all 3 tormentors, you're going to get turrets. Again, be ready because they're going to kind of be behind you this time, but you're pretty far away from them by pushing this hard, so it's super, super nice to be able to take those down. And again, from there, you're going to get ready for the passing plates section. Here, again, this is the final room. You don't technically have to do 2 passes back and forth. If you have enough time, you can. Otherwise, you can just do 1 pass back and forth to make sure you get, at least 1 buff spawned, and just make sure you're kind of keeping track of which one you're grabbing and all that. But now, here's the trick for this room. All of the plates are different now. So the left starting plate, again, on this side of the room, like technically the right of where we're looking, but the left starting plate when we're coming in is going to charge the middle plate. The middle starting plate is going to charge the right plate, and then the right starting plate is going to charge the left plate. You can basically think of it as the starting plates all go to the right. So like left goes middle, which is right of it, middle goes right, which is right of it, and then right goes left, which is right of it, but it goes off the map and then loops back around, if that makes sense. Because there's no plate that's right of right, so it just loops back around to the left. That one's maybe a little confusing. Just remember the other 2, and then it's process elimination, and you're good. But again, mechanics exactly the same. Pass it back and forth a couple times. Again, at least once, and you're good. Again, whoever killed the Tormentor, do be careful on this one, just because since we're all kind of killing the Tormentors together, there's a chance that you have like limited people that are gonna actually have the stolen favor buff to be able to see these 3 pillars, but they're all very close together. So as long as one person calls out all 3, left to right, then everybody's gonna know it anyway, so it's not a big deal. But just make sure you do get that call out. Now again, just like before, you're going to want to go ahead and pick up your buffs. Again, since I'm the middle plate, I'm just picking up circles because they're going to be near the middle plate. You're going to still want to have triangle on right and square on left. Really doesn't matter. Again, this is just keeping it organized the best we can. Again, make sure that we're killing the subjugators once we have let the charges dissipate, and you can again help each other pretty easily because they're going to be spawning kind of close together, just like with the tormentors. And once you've done that, again, make sure you call it that you're ready and have your person start your charge. Again, left goes middle, middle goes right, and right goes left. Now again, do note that once all 3 have been locked in, that is going to spawn turrets again, but also keep an eye on your timer, as long as one person can come up here and dunk, if your timer's getting kind of low, we're at 15 seconds, you can just get as long as one person dunks, that's going to give you a little bit of time back. So you can kind of use that to make sure that you still have a little bit of extra time, bumped us up another 20 seconds there, and then everybody else can focus on the turrets and then come up and dunk later. You just want to make sure you get at least have enough time. If you have a minute plus left, then you don't really care. Just there, we were getting a little bit low on time, so I went to go ahead to focus on getting at least 1 dunk in, and then once everybody else cleared everything else that they were doing, again, we're at 30 seconds. We watch this again. We go from 15 seconds, I dunk my resonance, goes up to 35 seconds, and then we skip ahead a little bit. Everybody kills some of the other ads, they dunk their resonance, goes up to a minute 40, so now we're chilling. We just killed the last set of ads, we killed the last unstop, and GG, the encounter is over. So now we have everybody's favorite encounter, the 4th encounter in Verity. I feel like this encounter is not as bad as people are making out to be. There is a lot of shapes, there is a lot of callouts, there is a lot of knowledge necessary. The actual execution of it is not that bad. It's really just getting a grasp on what you're supposed to be doing, right? So there is 2 very different, very distinct roles in this encounter, and it is completely random on which one you're going to get. I think that's the first kind of difficult part to get over and get through is the fact that you're not always going to be doing the same thing, and it makes it a little harder to learn just because then maybe you do a couple runs of this thing and then you're starting to get a little bit, but then suddenly you get thrown into a different role that you've never seen before, and that can get a little bit tricky. But we're going to break it down. Let's start with the inside team. So there's going to be obviously 6 guardians on your team, hopefully, if you're not low manning it, and 3 people are going to get teleported basically into a different dimension all by themselves. Like there'll be 3 groups of 1 and 1 group of 3. So for this clip, we are going to be getting teleported in by ourselves. So we go ahead and start the encounter. What I like to do when I start the encounter here is I actually go to this specific spot, as you see right behind that middle where I started the encounter here. I come like right about here, because if we do become teleported, and as you can see on the top left, right, really easy to tell if you get teleported is if, everybody leaves your minimap, right? You don't have to think about or look at anything else. That is like a super easy way. It's supposed to give you like an animation when you do get teleported. It seems like sometimes it does that and sometimes it doesn't. Like in this case, I don't really feel like I get much of an animation. I just kind of go. Like it just goes. But I like to stand specifically right here because the very first thing you want to do when you get teleported in, super simple. We're going to break this down. Step 1 is what shapes do you see from left to right? So by standing here, I can see the left shape right over here. This is square. I can see the middle shape. This is triangle. And it's always going to be one of each. So the last one's circle. I don't need to go look at it. It will be circle 100% of the time. So the very first thing I do at this point, I'm going to bring over my little like notepad here just so I can kind of show you what I'm doing in chat visually, is I'm going to type STC, right? Square, triangle, circle. This is going to keep track of everything for both myself and for my teammates for later. Mostly for my teammates. This can be helpful for other things, but it's going to be mostly for your teammates. So very first step, that's done. That's simple. Every single person that gets teleported in by themselves is going to see this exact same flow from left to right. They'll all have the same exact set of 3 symbols in the exact same order. Now the second step, you can actually do a lot of different things. There's not only one way to do this second step. I feel like I've came up with an actually better strat than what I'm doing in this clip, so I'm going to explain that strat, even though visually it's not going to be quite the same. The first thing you want to do, no matter what your strat is though, is figure out what symbol you have, and remember that. That's going to be helpful. So all the guardians are going to be literally what you look like. So this guy over here, this is what I look like, so I have the square, right? Just remember that. Write it down if you have to. Remember that. It's very helpful. It's very important. So once you know your symbol, which again was me here over here, and I've got the square, you're going to want to go ahead and kill your 2 knights one at a time. Makes it a lot easier just to kill them one at a time. We're going to go ahead and kill our first knight here in a second. You're going to look at the symbol it drops. So this guy drops a square, right? I had a square. This is a square. Just matching that up. If you get a symbol from the knight that you are holding, right? I was holding the square, and this symbol from the knight is a square. Leave it on the ground. Do not touch it. Just leave it there. Again, I'm not doing that in this clip. We're doing something different. I think the strategy I'm going to explain makes this a lot simpler than the strategy that I am showing on the footage here. Again, technically, what you have to do here, I'm gonna break this down in a couple different ways. Technically, what you have to do here is we just need to get 6 dunks done to anybody in order to spawn the ghost phase. But doing it in the way I'm going to explain makes this a lot smoother and a lot simpler, so we're doing that. So again, if we have a square, just don't touch it, don't dunk it. So once you've killed the first knight, you're going to go ahead and kill the second knight. Again, it's going to spawn a symbol. In this case, it is circle. Again, circle is not square, so you are going to pick up this symbol. All you have to do with this symbol is dunk it at whatever statue has that symbol. So whichever, look again, this example was circle, triangle, square, square, triangle, circle. So from left to right, that means that the right statue has the circle. I would recommend having your chat just permanently pulled up for this. You can do that in settings. It makes it a lot easier. Or you can just visually look. They'll still be there. Like you can still be able to see the circle being held by the dude on right. So you can just go up and look for it and just match it, right? So I know I didn't, the main thing, the important thing here is I have square, right? I'm gonna write this, I have square. I can type. So I remember this, that I have square, and I remember I kill a knight, and it drops a not square. So I'm just picking up I am picking up the symbol and matching it with the circle. Circle goes to circle. Boom. That's simple. And so as you can see here, we're looking at the statue. It's holding circle, so we're just going to walk up to that statue and go ahead and dunk that circle in circle. So at that point, this is what we've done. Again, we've killed 2 knights. We left the first one on the ground because we already had square. We gave the circle to circle. At that point, just call out that you're good. You've killed your 2 knights. Like make sure that that's communicated to each person and to each member of the team, because all 3 people that are inside need to have done this before you do the next step. It's going to make it simpler. Technically, you can get away with not doing it that way. It's going to make it as simple as possible. You just kill 2 knights, don't pick up the symbol if it's yours, you do pick up the symbol if it's not yours, and you give it to the person. Once you've done that and all 3 people have done that, then you can go ahead and kill 2 more knights. This time when you kill the knights, you're going to get the same buff that you have from both knights. That was the whole point of what we were doing, right? We literally made sure that we passed both of the shapes to the person that has those shapes as their main symbol. So like I have both squares, the person with triangles is going to have both triangles, the person with circles is going to have both circles. So at this point, we're doing step 2, which step 2 is giving those shapes to the other people. Because our actual end goal, what's our end goal? Our end goal is for everyone to have the opposite to of the shape they are holding. This is our end goal. The reason we have to do it this way is kind of finicky. I don't like. There's actually a way you could do this faster, and we tested doing it faster, where it's like just do this step first, like literally just communicate, see which ones you have, and try to make sure that you all have the end goal immediately. It doesn't let you do that, at least in certain cases. Like the game will literally just like break and bug out if you try to do this first. So you got to do this in 2 steps, and this is the easiest way in terms of being able to do enough steps that the game allows, but also making it as smooth as possible. So again, we went through step 1. Step 2, kill 2 more knights, again, 1 at a time, makes it a lot easier. Just kill 1, pick up the symbol, dunk square. So here I pick up the square, I'll dunk it in the statue right next to me because this is the person in the middle that's holding triangle, and then I would go kill the other knight, pick up the other square, and dunk it on the right side pillar, again, the 2 statues that are not mine. I'm dunking 1 on one and 1 on the other. I like to do it from left to right. It makes it easier to remember. I'm not sure, like, oh, which one did I dunk in? I don't remember. Just dunk left, then middle, then right. Again, skipping yourself. So since I was on the left, I'm skipping left. My first statue from left to right is middle at that point. First dunk is middle, second dunk is right. I know that gets a little confusing. I just want to be very specific about avoiding your person. I don't even think you can dunk on your person, but just in case you can, definitely don't dunk in your statue. Dunk in the other 2 statues, and again, make sure that 1 to one person, 1 to the other person. It's very important. It needs to be very clearly said. Now, at some time during this phase of dunking all these buffs, you're going to get a message that says the witness notices your efforts. This is going to kill the 3 inside guardians. What I'd recommend doing, if you can, is being kind of more near the other side. I'm pretty much in like the worst spot possible in this clip. You should be more towards the opposite side here, kind of where you like where the glass is going to be formed, like where I'm facing, like way back that way, because it's going to allow the ghosts to spawn closer for the outside team, which again, we'll show that outside team perspective here in a second, but this is going to be your perspective. You're literally going to die, and it's going to look like you actually died. You're not dead. The most important thing to do here is to get a perspective of somebody that is still alive running around, and your job at this point is going to be to call out where somebody's guardian is. You can kind of see this guardian in the background here. I'm going to wait until we actually can see a little bit of a better angle here. So I am on the perspective of somebody else. Again, I can kind of skip through and try to get into perspective from somebody that's in like a good spot. But since I can see this guardian, right, this guardian with kind of like arms or something coming out of their spots, you need to know everybody's guardian look. It's very useful to have stuff like this where there's like a very like distinct something about your guardian so that you can kind of call out, even if you don't know who's who, you can call it like, who, oh yeah, who's the person with like the arm coming out of, you know, the extra arms and stuff, like, and then it'll be like, oh, someone will be like, oh, that's me, like, and so then you can call specifically which guardian that is. It's like, okay, this person is on this pillar. Now, specifically, we do have callouts for these pillars. It's just left to right, 1 through 6, so you can kind of see there's 1, 2, 3. Again, this is the first one, second one, third one, and then if I go back to the right, we got the 4th one right here. So the one that I can see, this guardian is on number 4. So I'd say whoever this was, I'd say is on 4. Now the other side of this is, and again, we have 5 here and 6 further to the right. But the other side of this is the person that is outside. They need to know which ghost they picked up. So they're going to just see the ghost. So you need to not only know the guardian's fashion, you need to know the guardian's ghost fashion. So again, the ghosts are also very important in terms of either having a very distinct ghost or having some sort of ghost that like matches with what you are looking like as a guardian. It's a very weird raid mechanic. Like this part is weird, but I wouldn't say it's that hard. It's just a communication test. I don't think this part's that confusing. It's just like, do you know what your ghost looks like? Do you know what your guardian looks like? Just that is something that's actually very important in this part and in this mechanic. Again, if you call out the right thing and the people on the outside pick up the ghost and dunk on the right spot, that will bring you back to life. If they dunk in the wrong spot, that will actually kill that guardian that tried to dunk the symbol. So make sure you tell them the correct number in the correct spot with the correct guardian. Otherwise, you're going to get them killed. But again, this is someone walking up. They res that person. So at this point, I'm just waiting. You could also not see yourself. Like the three people that die, quote unquote, die on the inside only see one person, and it is not themselves. So it's a communication test within that too. So at this point, I'm just waiting for the outside person to res me right there. They res myself on the pillar that I was on, and I get resed right back to where I was in the fight. So once you're res, you want to continue where you left off, right? So again, in the other example, we were just passing the two shapes to the other two people. If I've already done that, I'm good. If not, I need to make sure that I passed my two shapes to the other two people. So this is actually a different clip, so I don't think the symbols are going to be the same. But again, in our original example, I had square. We had gotten the two squares. We kill the two more knights. So if we get ghosted in the middle of that, we just got to remember which one we passed to. Again, that's why we're going left to right. So if we killed a knight and we picked up one square and dunked it in the middle pillar, that means after we get resed again, we just finish off what we were doing. We kill the other knight, we pick up that square, and we dunk in the right pillar. So you just got to make sure you pass your two symbols that you were originally holding to the other two guardians, whether it's before the ghost phase or after the ghost phase or on both sides of the ghost phase. It does not matter. Just make sure you finish doing that. So at this point, you want to have the two opposite shapes of your guardian on this far wall. That's basically, again, our end goal that we talked about here is our end goal is for everyone to have the two opposite, or the opposite two of the shape they're holding. I didn't spell shape right, but that's fine. And again, this far wall, you don't technically even really need to pay attention to this, assuming you're doing everything right. This is more just like a did you do it right type of thing. So this far wall is telling you what shapes that your knights are going to drop for you. So again, I have squares, and even in this clip I do have square. Again, you can see me over here on the left side. Right now it's triangle, and as we play it through a little bit, hopefully I can see the wall again. It's rotating between triangle and circle, right? So it goes triangle, circle, and then back to triangle and back to circle. It's just going to keep doing that. That means I have the two correct shapes that are basically queued in my knights, for lack of a better term, that are going to drop as the next two knight kills. So as I go up and find my two knights to spawn, we're going to go ahead and kill one right here, hopefully. That's going to drop the triangle buff, which is one of the symbols that we need. If you're kind of in between knight phases, like you've already killed the one and had to do something with it, just be careful because you will have an ogre that spawns. You'll want to kill him to, again, make sure to get the next set of knights to spawn. Once that happens, you can go ahead and kill that knight, then pick up your other shape, right? So now you have triangle and circle, which makes a conoid. I don't the buff, don't worry about the buff names. That's going to confuse the heck out of you. I don't worry about it either. Basically a cone, right? So assuming the outside team has done what they're supposed to have done by this point, and if they haven't, you can just wait. You are done. You've done, again, you had square originally, you had triangle and circle that you picked up and combined into a cone, and you're done. If outside team is already done, once you do this, you're going to see this glass shatter, boom, and you can run through the glass and make it outside, and you have completed basically one round of the inside team. Now we got to talk about the outside team. Now let's talk about the outside mechanic. Basically, you're going to need to get that first call out from the inside team first before you do anything, because that is going to be paramount to what we're doing next. So for this clip that we're showing, that call out was CST. So again, that means that the call out was circle left, square middle, triangle right. What that means is we need to make 3 3D shapes out here in the outside team. That does not include each of these shapes on each of those pillars. So the left pillar, maybe we should spread this out just to make it a little more clear. The left pillar cannot have a 3D shape that has a circle in it. The middle pillar cannot have a 3D shape that has a sphere in it. And the right pillar cannot have a 3D shape that has a triangle in it. Breaking this down a little bit further, and honestly probably giving too much information before we get to it, but we'll come back to this a little bit more. What this means is, again, the left pillar cannot have a circle, which means it must have both a triangle and a square. That's the second part of this. You cannot have any shapes that are doubled either. Like, so you can't have like a cube that has 2 squares. They need to all have one of each of the other shapes in them. So the left pillar basically requires T and S because it can't have C, right? And if you have a triangle and a square, that's going to make the prism. Middle cannot have square, so it must have C and T, again, circle and triangle, so it's going to make a cone. And then right cannot have triangle, so it must have both circle and square, which is going to make a cylinder. Again, so this is the end goal and the end information. We'll come back to this once we go through everything. So again, starting here, we cannot have a circle on the left. So the first thing I do, this shape on the left, they're always going to start with having the wrong thing. So I kill the knight, it drops a circle. I'm just dunking it on the pillar that needs to not have a circle. So again, going back, just taking the beginning information that we had, which was CST, we got it. We killed a knight. Doesn't matter which knight you kill. Doesn't matter which symbol you get. If we had gotten square from that knight, we would just dunk square on middle. If we gotten triangle from that knight, we would dunk triangle on right. We're just putting it in whichever of the three pillars that we got the call out from. The reason we're doing this is we are actually dissecting. And when you go up to this pillar, which we need to skip ahead a little bit here, when you go up to the pillar and try to dunk it, you're actually going to see the dissect prompt. That's what specifically this actual call out is when you're dunking it, right? So you see, boom, right here we have the dissect mechanic. So what is that doing? It is pulling out that symbol from that pillar. So and again, it's kind of like the opposite of the inside. Here, instead of passing it to that pillar or to that person, here you're pulling out that shape of this pillar. So we're pulling out the circle, again, because we don't want it. So that's specifically what we're trying to do here. Now, the first dissect, dunking that in there, doesn't technically do anything. We're just kind of setting it up. Nothing has changed yet. We just have a circle dissected from left, but nothing has actually changed. So once you've dissected the first symbol, again, you kind of just like started this. The second thing you're going to do, the important thing, once it actually does something, is once you kill the second knight and get the second symbol. Again, it does not matter which knight, it does not matter which symbol, you're just going to want to find a second symbol. So here we have the triangle on the ground. We're going to go ahead and pick that up, and we're going to put it on the right side, because again, pulling up the callout here, the T is on right from the inside callout. That means we cannot have any triangles on the right side in our final shape here. So once we put the triangle on the right side, right now we have a pyramid here, which is actually made up of two triangles. So once we put this triangle here, we're going to dissect the triangle from the right side. So let's write this out a little bit too. We're going to skip that for now. We're just going to put this here. So we dissect the circle on left, is what we did. And we are also dissecting the triangle on right, which I cannot type or spell today, but that's fine. Something close. There we go. So let's move this over. So when we do this, when we do both parts, again, we did this first part first, nothing technically happens. When we do the second part here, you can already kind of see this in the background. The shape is actually shifting, and it's flipping those two symbols. So now the circle that we dissected from left is actually going to it's going to go on to the right, and the triangle we dissected from right is going to go on to the left. So this next part is helpful to know. It makes things a little easier, a little faster. It's not necessarily necessary to know, though. So now that we've done that, we've made this into a triangle circle shape, which is a cone, and the left side was originally a cylinder, I believe, which, again, is made of circle and square. But then we got rid of the circle, we put a triangle, so we made it into ST, this one, so we made it into a prism. Again, you don't technically need to know that. All you really need to know is, okay, this shape now is a triangle and a circle. You can kind of see the triangle, you know the circle's on the bottom. You do need to know that part. You need to be able to look at the symbol or the shape that's there and be able to know what two shapes are inside of it. That part is required and important. So at this point, again, breaking down kind of where we are at this time, C on the left, again, we cannot have circle on the left, which we've already done. Again, we talked about that. We changed it from a cylinder to a prism. Again, that is triangle and square, which does not include circle. So the left side is done. Again, right side, we can still see right here in the background, that has a triangle in there, so that's not going to be good. And then the middle shape here, we can also see is a cylinder at the moment. So again, cylinder, pulling up our chart again, is a circle and a square, which the middle shape cannot have a square, so we're going to need to pull the square out of this. And we're going to need to pull, on the right side, we're going to need to pull the triangle out of that and basically flip the two, which again will make this into a CT, which is cone, which CT does not have S. And once we flip the right side, we're going to be not having the T, we're going to be having the cylinder on the right side, because we currently have cone, which is CT. We pull out the T, we put the S over there. So once we kill more knights and eventually find one of those two shapes we need, again, the square and the triangle, we found the square shape. Again, as we just said, we're going to put that in the middle because right now it has a square and we want it to not have a square. Once you have dunked and deposited, though, all three of those symbols, you are going to get unstops, so just be ready for those. And you're also going to get the ghost phase here at some point during this as well. So once you do get that ghost phase, I would recommend stopping what you're doing, picking up the ghost. Again, as we talked about on the inside team, you need to make sure you know which ghost you pick up, or at least call out which ghost, kind of describe the ghost so that the people on the inside can be like, hey, that's my ghost. And then the people on the inside are going to tell you which of the spots you need to dunk in. Again, this might be a little bit of an easier perspective. kind of seeing all the spots there. Once they tell you which ghost goes where, you can go ahead and dunk it and go back to dissecting. So once you've done basically getting everybody up alive on the inside, you can go back to your dissecting. Again, right now we're looking for, all we need is a triangle. We kill the knight, that's a circle, we don't need that. We kill this next knight, we need this triangle. We need to put it on the right side. I don't know why I'm sitting here in the middle looking like I need to put this here. I already put the square in middle earlier. I guess I just took a second to remember that, so I'm like, wait, that's not right. I need the triangle on right side. So this triangle goes on right side, I dunk it here, and again, it's going to change the shapes. It's going to flip the middle one to right, it's going to flip the right one to middle. So now we've made the cylinder on the right side, which is what we need. We have now made the cone on the middle, again, which is what we need. And then the left side still has the shape from earlier, which is the prism. So this is where everything comes together. Again, once the inside team has their 3D shape formed, that is basically the same shape as the one you are making on the outside, they're going to be able to come through that glass and come outside. Once when you are the outside team and you're done, you're just going to want to come back here and basically chill. You don't really need to kill too much more. Wait for your team to come out. And once all 6 people are out, you're going to get 2 unstops, one on the left side, one on the right side. Go ahead and take them down. Go ahead and take the rest of these kind of weaker enemies down. And you're going to then want to split up around this area. You don't want to go way outside of the map or anything. You just want to stay in this kind of section because 5 people are going to fake die again. This time is a little bit easier than the inside because your ghosts are just going to be right next to you, so you know which ghost is which. But it is the same mechanic as earlier, where you're going to be able to only see one person that is not you, and you need to tell the people that are alive, again, that one person that's alive, which guardian is on which of these 6 pillars. So again, left to right is 1 through 6. Just if you see whichever pillar, you want to tell them, hey, this person is on that pillar, and then that person that's alive is going to pick up their ghost and dunk it on the pillar. Once that person's alive, they can start helping the person that's alive. So, again, you start with 1 person alive, 5 people fake dead. Once that one person reses 1 person, now you have 2 people alive to help get the other 4 people alive. Once another person gets alive, you have 3 people alive, you get the other 3, etc., etc. You can kind of see where I'm going with that. Basically, it gets a little easier as you get a couple reses, but that first one is really important because if the person dunks it on the wrong spot and there's only 1 person alive, they die when they dunk on the wrong spot, and then it's just an insta-wipe. So that first one has to be right. And again, the remaining ones you don't really want to be wrong either because you don't want to just have extra deaths there. And again, you only have 1 minute for this mechanic. So if we go back again, you see at the very start of this phase, we start with basically 1 minute as soon as the phase starts. And you do lose maybe like 5-ish seconds, maybe a little bit more of that, just like waiting to fake die. So just keep that in mind a little bit as well. It's going to be like 50 seconds, although you can already see the guardian that you're going to be able to see a few seconds before you fully fake die, so you can kind of be looking for that already. Again, it's not a huge race, a minute's a pretty long time, but definitely it's a very heavy communication mechanic. Like you have to communicate, you have to be able to call out, you have to be able to like at least describe what you're seeing, even if you don't know whose fashion is what, or whose is who. Again, you don't necessarily need to know the ghost symbols on this one because the ghosts drop right next to the guardian, and it makes it very easy. As long as you're split up enough where the guardians have space between them, you're going to know whose ghost is which. And from here, you're just going to do the same exact process for 3 rounds. Again, all 3 rounds are exactly the same. Once you've done the 3rd round and gotten, again, all the ghosts dunked successfully, again, assuming you do it before the timer, the encounter will be complete. Now let's talk about the witness fight. This has a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that need to happen at very specific times. There's a lot of mechanics. We're going to go over this the best we can. Again, I'm going to basically just narrate what is going on here. To start, at least the way we did it, you don't have to technically do it this way. You can have 3 runners. You can do things a little bit differently. We had 3 people on left, 3 people on right, basically 2 ad clears and 1 runner for each side. Ad clearing, simple enough. You're just killing everything you see. The runners are going to have the job of basically breaking the hands and the wristbands of the witness that are going to be around the room, and then breaking the glyphs that you can see on the witness's chest here, which is also seen in the 12-person activity that is out now. If you've done that, I'd honestly kind of highly recommend doing the 12-person activity before the raid, which storyline wise it's not necessarily how it's meant to be done, but it is very good practice for the end part, which we'll go over in a second here as well. But as a runner, your first goal is basically to find a hand. So there's 3 types of hands. You've got the hand coming up out of the ground, going straight up. You've got the hand coming from the sky, going straight down. And then there is also a 3rd hand, which we'll definitely see here in a second, that is basically just horizontal, coming out of the wall. Each of these hands corresponds to a different buff. The hand that is coming out of the ground is shooting out the little pastas and making the circle buff, which we can kind of see in the bottom left corner on the ground. The hand that is coming from the sky is making the triangle buff on the ground, and the hand that is coming out of the wall is basically doing like the Rolk beam, and it's considered square, but it's kind of a rectangle, but you're going to want to remember square for some things later. So your first goal as the runner is pick any hand. I personally like the ones that come directly out of the ground. I feel these are a little bit easier to do, but you're going to need to shoot its wristband, which we are looking at right here, while you are in its corresponding buff. So again, this hand makes the circle buff, so we need to make sure that we shoot this wristband while being in the circle buff. So we're going to do that now, and we did it. It breaks, and then you want to get out of that buff as quickly as you can, because if you're in it for too long, you are going to get its actual buff on the left side. Like you'll get the cylindrical buff, which is not necessarily a super huge deal, but it can stack up, especially if you're going kind of slow on things later, as if you get more than 3 stacks of buffs total, you are going to die. So that's the one thing. If you can get out of there quick, it's awesome. You don't get the buff at all. You get this enmity buff. I think this is just really just telling you that you broke the wrist successfully. There's not really much to that, but the important thing when you break this wrist, again, we're going to show this again and try to get the pause, is to see the color of the wristband once it breaks. So you're going to go there, and then you can see it's a little bit shiny here, but this is the green wristband, as you can see there, as it kind of is going away, as the explosion kind of ends, it'll be more green. You can stare at it for a little bit longer. At this point, I got pretty comfortable with the encounter. I didn't have to look at it for very long to see the color, but this is the green wristband. Now the next part is basically a translation of the color to which symbol's actual buff you need. So the first is just the check. You need to be, to get the up hand, you need the circle buff, or you need to be in the circle buff to then break the wrist and check the color. Now that we've seen that it's green, we need to actually have the triangle buff in order to break the wristband. So in order to get the triangle buff, we're going to look for the triangle buff, which happens to be right next to us here, which is very convenient. This does not happen super often. If you can get this to happen, super awesome, huge, we love that. But you just need to stand in it until you actually get the pyramidal resonance, or whatever resonance it is. Again, pyramid is triangle, cylindrical is circle, and hexahedron, I believe, is square. But you know, whichever buff you need to stand in there until you get that one's resonance. Once you have that, you are then good to get out of that. And now you need to go back to the original buff that you were standing in, or basically the original spot you were standing in. I'm trying to specify spot versus buff, because the actual buff is the resonance, right? That's, we had to stand in triangle because the wristband was green. Now we have to go back to circle, because that's the buff that, or the spot that this hand is creating. So we go back, we find where the circle is, and then once we are in that circle, we need to immediately shoot the wristband. It needs to be very quick, because if you are not quick, if you come into this circle and wait a second, you are going to then get the cylindrical resonance times 2 at that point, because you already have times 1 of this. And if you have the cylindrical, that's no longer the right buff in order to break this wristband. So you need to come in and be ready to shoot instantly. That is very important. If you do that correctly, you are going to get the glyph breaker buff on the top of your screen. Now once you have the glyph breaker buff, you're going to want to go ahead and shoot the different glyphs on the witness's chest. What we were doing is we were actually waiting for both of our runners, if possible, to both get glyph breaker and shoot the glyphs at the same time. The reason we were doing this is this was actually super helpful towards the amount of enemies that were spawning, especially the big enemies, the like the big scions that can like pull you and all that. The subjugators. The subjugators will spawn in, but you'll get less total subjugators if you do multiple at once. So it can be helpful if you can. Again, if the running gets a little behind, don't worry about it. That's fine. Again, here, once you've broken the glyphs, or again your glyph, or if you wait for your teammate, you break the other glyph, then you're going to want to go back and start running again. So here, this is actually a really nice rotation for me. I can go immediately find another up hand here coming out of the ground. So I'm looking for that circle buff. I get into the circle buff, I shoot the wrist, and this time it is a red wrist. So the red wrist means that we need the square buff, or again the wall, basically the buff that's coming out of the wall. So this time we're going to look for this beam over there. So I kind of saw it just go. So I know that the wrist is over here that's coming out of the wall. And so I'm going to wait for the next beam that comes out. I can kind of see it on the ground. I'm going to sit here and wait till I get the hexahedral, or whatever it's called, buff, hexahedron resonance. Again, I left a little bit earlier there for a second. So the thing that this resonance buff is like when you don't want it, it feels like it gives it to you instantly. When you do want it, it gives it to you a little slower. Just, you'll kind of figure out the pacing and how long you can stand in it. What's difficult now sometimes is when you get this double shape, right? Like the triangle is here and the circle's here. So you got to be very careful, right? So we had the up hand. We need to be in the circle buff in order to break this wrist because we have the hexahedron, which is, again, red. We had the red wrist, so we have the square buff, which again is the hexahedron buff. So we need to be in the circle to break it. But we need to avoid this triangle while doing so. So you got to be very kind of careful with something like this. So I kind of avoid the triangle, I land in the circle, and I'm able to break the wrist there. Again, you got to do this quickly, because if you take too long, which I was kind of close, I did get the spherical resonance here, even just by being in there. If I didn't break that there, I would have had the wrong buff now. I would have had to go back and get the square buff, which, again, that would have then gotten me to ×3. And then if I'm ×3 and I try to go for this buff, if I don't break that super quickly, and I get to a ×4, that just kills me instantly. And then I lose all of that, I have to restart again. And the other thing with this is if you take too long on these wrists, the wristbands can change colors, which is very bad. So you got to be really, really, really fast with this running. But again, we have Glyph Breaker again. We can go middle and get ready to hit the next wrists. Or hit the next glyphs, I'm sorry. So sometimes after you break a wrist, you're going to get the message the witness tests you. And in terms of sometimes, you're going to get this message exactly one time per phase. Not 0, not 2. You're going to get one test per phase before damage phase at some point. And the thing you need to know here is which wrist you just broke. If you broke the, again, wrist coming out of the ground that is shooting up and basically you have to stand in the circle buff for it, you're going to need to make a circle. If you broke the wrist coming out of the wall, you're going to need to make a square. Again, it has a square buff. And if you need to break the wrist coming from the sky that's going down that puts the triangle buff on the ground, you're going to need to make a triangle. So if we go through this footage a little bit, you're going to be able to see these, basically these, I don't even know what you're going to call these, just like these little like symbols or these kind of like crystals that are spawned all in front of the witness. And at least for us, we had a specific person or 1 to 2 people working on making these shapes. If you have too many people trying to make them, you're going to have different people shooting different things. People are going to get confused. It makes things a lot easier if you just have, again, 1 or 2 specific people that are going to focus on that. So again, for this one, we broke a up wrist, or again, the wrist coming out of the ground that makes the circle buff on the ground, or the circle spot on the ground. So we need to make the circle. It's more like, it's kind of like a diamond shape. It's like a diamond circle for this one. The other ones are a little bit more obvious. We will put pictures on screen now to make sure that you can see exactly what you're supposed to hit and not hit for each of the shapes. But if you do this correctly, you're just going to break all of them. You're going to leave the rest that are supposed to be there to make that shape. Again, this is the circle diamond-ish thing. And once you have done that, you're going to see the witness's trap is foiled, and you're going to need to get ready to jump. When he does this big blast attack, you need to make sure you are off the air or off the ground, because if you're on the ground, he will kill you. There's also a very distinct sound effect when this happens, so you can definitely listen for that. And as soon as you hear that sound effect, that's the time you want to jump. You don't have to be super high in the air. You just need to be in the air in some way, shape, or form. Now, once you get the last glyph breaker, again, you're down to that last glyph on the witness's chest, you're going to want to call everybody to middle because it's going to be damage phase right afterwards. So you're going to go ahead and break that glyph. I really can't aim. We're just not going to talk about that. And as soon as the glyph is broken, it's going to be the damage phase start. You want to wait for that chest to basically start glowing, and you're going to start doing damage. Now, this is probably the single hardest damage phase that we've ever seen in Destiny in terms of just, you can't just stand there and do damage. I mean, even Rolk, you had to move around to do some stuff. But here, you need to avoid basically constant attacks from the witness on the ground. If you get hit by these, you're going to basically insta-die. You have maybe a tiny bit of wiggle room to get hit by a tiny, tiny bit. I was running healing grenades. You kind of give yourself an instant heal. The healing turret helped a little bit too. But we're going to break this down. So at the very start of the battle, again, going at the start of damage, you're just going to kind of chill there. You can start some damage. He's going to basically do an attack either on one side of the ground or the other side. And whatever side you see that like yellow beam on the ground, so this is kind of the right side there, you want to move to the left. And then as soon as you move to the left and that beam goes across, you want to move to the opposite side. He's always going to do the 2 opposite sides first. You can also see a little bit of a tell just on the witness himself during these different attacks. You're going to see his right or our like left hand glow here, so you know he's going to attack kind of this way on the right side. You move to the left, and then again, he's always doing the opposite second, so you know to just move to the other side immediately. Then you have a little bit of downtime to do some damage. He's going to do another attack. You're going to want to avoid that. Again, whatever side he does, avoid the other way. And then he will do another kind of blast attack like he does during the test, where you're going to need to jump. Again, the jump is obvious-ish if you pay attention to the sound. Sometimes, for me, I was having a little bit of an issue. Like, you see all these colors and everything happening and you just jump too early and panic, listen for that sound. That's going to make it the easiest way. Like you just, because sometimes he does it a little faster, sometimes he does it a little bit slower. It makes it a lot easier if you just wait and listen for that sound and just jump as soon as you hear the sound. That's going to make things very simple. Now, towards the end of the damage phase here, you're going to see him kind of just like charge up his like whole body, and he's going to slam his fist into the ground. If you stay on that plate, you will get smashed and die. So make sure you get out of there before that happens. And at that point, it's damage phase is over. And you're going to need to rinse and repeat from the top. So the second and third phase are completely the same once again. Again, this is what the wall wrist looks like. I feel like I haven't shown too much of that, so you want to kind of have an idea on what the wrists coming out of the wall looks like and the different, again, the kind of like squarish rectangle beam that it can do. Again, here, you just same idea. You got to make sure you figured out what the color was first, which I didn't show here, but I needed the circle buff, which again is the yellow. Like if the wrist had to be yellow, so I had to go get the circle buff. Then I come back, make sure I'm in the square, and then shoot the wrist with the circle buff. Once I have that, I again have the glyph breaker, so I can go ahead and hit the glyph. And again, same thing with all the different shapes. It's just you got to make sure you're pairing them. You have up to 3 rounds in order to kill the witness. You can get to 3 damage phases, otherwise he will go immune and it will be a wipe. But if you do get the witness to final stand within those 3 rounds, you will just need to do damage and basically kill him before he kills you. So there'll be a couple seconds of downtime. He'll be immune for a couple seconds. Just get ready. Once the chest starts glowing again and is open again, you want to output damage quickly. He will wipe you if you do not do enough damage quickly enough here, and he is still doing his attacks from the basically whole rest of the raid and the rest of the other DPS phases. So keep dodging, keep doing damage, make sure you do a lot of damage quickly, and you can take down the witness and complete the Salvation's Edge raid. This raid is definitely a doozy, and I know this video was a lot, but I hope it was helpful. I will be doing helps for a long time on my stream throughout this season or episodes and into the future, so definitely come on by if you'd like some help or would like to just see some more about this raid. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.